Hello everyone, my name is Vadim, and you're listening to Echo Drills, the ear training podcast. Welcome to episode 1. In this introductory episode, I'm just going to be covering some ground regarding what I want this podcast to be and what I hope to be able to provide to you, the listener. But first, a little bit about myself. I'm Vadim. I've been a musician for about 12 years now. I'm primarily a guitar player, and I've played in many different bands spanning many different genres. But I've always been kind of a casual musician. I've been primarily self-taught. I did decide to go to school after about 9 years of playing guitar, and that's where I got introduced to the basic core principles of theory, as well as ear training. Now, before that, I thought that having a good ear is something you're born with, and it's you either got it or you don't. Of course, that's not true. In school, I did realize that it's something that you can hone. It's a skill that you can hone, and that you can get really good at it. You can really develop your ear, not only to recognize pitch, but also to recognize chord progressions, rhythm, harmonies, and various other aspects of songs and music. Now, I do find that ear training among casual musicians is highly neglected. And when I say casual musicians, I don't mean it in a derogatory way where I say that you don't take it seriously or something. I was a casual musician. I still kind of am a casual musician. I do get paid gigs now, but took a while. For the first 9 years, I would say a casual musician, and I was just relying on my technical chops to get through gigs, and I was willfully ignorant to the importance of having a good ear. However, I do understand now that if you train your ear, you will be a much more well-rounded musician, and that you will be easier to jam with. You will have a much easier time learning songs. You won't have to rely on chord charts on the internet, which may or may not be correct. You can write music more fluidly. You'll be able to transfer the ideas from your head onto your instrument much more accurately. And you will just have a better time playing music because you will have a deeper understanding of sound, and you will have a better connection to your craft. Now, I don't consider myself to having a good ear at this point in my life. While I did do a year or so of ear training in school, I quickly abandoned it because there was no easy way to practice it. I kind of had to go out of my way to practice it, and I did do it for a while with phone apps and whatnot. But I wanted to start this podcast not only to help you, the listeners, but also to sort of force myself to developing my own ear. And I wanted to do a long form podcast, sort of hour and a half long lessons where we could just do exercises. I find that having a strictly audio driven way of teaching would make this accessible to many people. You could listen to it on your way to work, at work, if you're doing like a labor job or something, and you can listen to music while you work. And it'll also open up the possibility to listen to the podcast while you're just doing other things like cooking or whatever, because you could do this kind of absent-mindedly. You don't need to put your full attention to it. You could still get the benefit of training your ear. And I want to break off the podcast into different segments. I do want to do interval recognition, where I'll play an interval for you guys and you will have to name it. I want to do chord identification, so the quality of a chord, whether it's major, minor, diminished, augmented, etc. I do want to get into chord progressions down the line. We'll be doing scale recognition, and I want to get into some rhythmic stuff. Hopefully, I can get you guys to identify time signatures, types of grooves, polyrhythms, etc. Now, going back to the notion of making this as accessible as possible, I want to refrain from making this a theory podcast because there are a multitude of resources online that can teach you theory much better than I can. That being said, I will be using some theoretical language, but you should be able to understand it as long as you keep up. So with all the housekeeping out of the way, let's dive right in. We'll start with some intervals, then we'll move on to chords, scales, and finally chord progressions. So let's get started with intervals. Since this is the first lesson, we're only going to be covering 4 intervals. I realize this may be very basic to a lot of you more experienced musicians, but I think it'll be worthwhile to do it anyway. Just think of it as conditioning. So we're going to be covering the minor second. To help identify that, you can think of the Jaws theme. We'll be doing the major second. I find thinking of Happy Birthday will help you with that. Right? Next will be the minor third. My go-to identifier for that is O Canada or Seven Nation Army. And then the last one will be the major third. A good one for that is When the Saints Go Marching In. Right? So the way this is going to work is I'm going to play any one of those 4 intervals. I'll play the interval 3 times, and then after the 3rd time, I will tell you what it was. And hopefully by the 3rd time, you will have identified it for yourself. Let's start. Number 1. That was F going to G. It's a major second. Number 2. That was C to C sharp. It's a minor second. Number 3. That was F going to A flat. It's a minor third. Number 4. That was G going to B flat. It's a minor third. Number 5. That was E going to G sharp. It's a major third. Number 6. That was C going to D, major second. Number 7. B flat going to B, to minor second. Number 8. That was A flat going to B flat. It's a major second. Number 9. That was D going to F. That's a minor third. Number 10. That was A going to C sharp. That's a major third. Number 11. That was C going to D flat. That's a minor second. Number 12. That's G going to B. That's a major third. Number 13. That's F sharp going to A. That's a minor third. Number 14. That's a C going to an E, major third. Number 15. That's a D going to an E. That's a major second. Number 16. That's a B going to an E flat. That's a major third. Number 17. That's C sharp going to D. That's a minor second. Number 18. That's A going up to a B. That's a major second. Number 19. That's G going up to A flat. That's a minor second. Number 20. That's F going up to A. That's a major third. Number 21. That's C sharp going to D sharp. It's a major second. Number 22. That's A going up to a C. That's a minor third. Number 23. And that's E going up to F. That's a minor second. Number 24. That's D going up to F sharp. That's a major third. And last one, number 25. And that's D sharp going up to F sharp. That's a minor third. Alright, so hopefully that wasn't too painful. And I mean to say that to both the experienced and the inexperienced. So now we can move right along to chords. Now again, since this is the first lesson, I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm only going to play major or minor chords, and I will play them in root position. And that means the bass note of the chord is going to be the 1. The middle note is going to be the 3rd, and the high note is going to be the 5th. Now, the easiest way to distinguish major minor chords, major chords quintessentially sound happy. For instance, the C major compared to the C minor, which sounds more brooding, a little darker. Major, minor. And if I play two different chords, if I play C major and then an A minor after that, you can still hear the difference. So that's C major going to A minor. So hopefully, if you keep that in mind, you'll be able to breeze through these next 25 examples without a problem. Let's go. Number 1. That was D minor. Number 2. That was A minor. Number 3. That was E minor. Number 4. That was C major. Number 5. That was B minor. Number 6. That's G major. Number 7. That's A major. Number 8. That was F major. Number 9. That's C minor. Number 10. That's D major. Number 11. That was G minor. Number 12. That's E major. Number 13. That's D minor. Number 14. That was C major. Number 15. That's B flat major. Number 16. And that's C sharp minor. Number 17. It's F minor. Number 18. That's G major. Number 19. That's A major. Number 20. That's D minor. Number 21. That's F minor. Number 22. That was C minor. Number 23. That was G minor. Number 24. That's E major. And finally, last one, number 25. And that's D major. And there you go. Great job. Okay, moving right along. Let's get to some scales. Now, I think 10 exercises will be more than enough since, again, I'm only going to be doing major or minor scales. Of course, as the lessons progress and I teach you more scales, we're going to expand that number to 25, maybe even 30. Now, to identify these scales, you can apply the same characteristic traits as you do to the chords. So, for example, if I play a C major scale, the classic, you can hear it sounds happy, uplifting, optimistic. And conversely, if I were to play an E minor scale, you could hear it sounds a little sadder, a little darker, a little more brooding. So hopefully you'll be able to tell those two types of scales apart. Let's begin. Number 1. That was a D minor scale. Number 2. That was an A minor scale. Number 3. That was a G minor scale. Number 4. That's a D major scale. Number 5. That's an E minor scale. Number 6. That was an F major scale. Number 7. That was a C major scale, the classic. Number 8. That was an A major scale. Number 9. That was a G minor scale. And lastly, number 10. That's a C minor scale. Okay, so to finish off this episode, I want to go over some chord progressions. Now, I do want to give you a little bit of a theory lesson here, but I'm not going to go too in depth. I'm going to go pretty quickly, and I'm going to try to be very brief in case some of you already know it. And if you don't understand some of the things I say, or if I talk a little too fast, I highly encourage you and recommend you to go on YouTube, go on Google, and just look up some beginner theory lessons, theory courses, just to get caught up to speed. I'm not going to go over every basic rule of chords and scales and chord progressions. I'm going to go very quick overview, just to kind of get everyone up to speed, and then we'll get right on with the exercises. So in order to streamline things and make things a little more fluid and basic and easy, the rest of this lesson will be done using the C major scale. Now, the C major scale, like every other major scale, consists of 7 notes. And then you're back to C. Right? Each of those notes also has a numerical value to it, or an interval value to it. So the C is your 1. Then the next note is your 2. That's a D. That's a major 2. The next note is the 3. It's a major 3rd. Then you get a perfect 4th, which is an F. Then you get a perfect 5th. That's a G. Then you get a major 6th. That's an A. And you get a major 7th. It's a B. Then your 8th, or you're back up to 1. C. And every one of those notes can also be turned into a chord if you stack a 3rd and a 5th onto it. So in this case, our 1, C, if you put a 3rd on it and a 5th, you get a major chord. You get C major. We can do the same thing to the 2 note. D. You put a 3rd on it and a 5th. While staying in the C major scale, you get a D minor. So the 2 chord of the C major scale is D minor. Now next, if you go to the 3rd note of C major, E, and you put a 3rd on top of that and a 5th on top of that, you get an E minor chord. So the 3rd chord in a major scale is going to be a minor chord. In the case of C major, you get E minor. Moving right along to the 4, if you put a 3rd on it and a 5th on it, you get a major chord. You get an F major. So it's the 4 chord in a major scale is going to be a major chord. You get F major. Moving right along to the 5 chord, it's going to be a major. The 6 chord is going to be a minor. And the 7 chord is going to be diminished. We haven't done a diminished chord yet, but don't worry about it. We'll get to them. Now, just to say that one more time, in a major scale, the 1 chord is going to be major. The 2 chord will typically be minor. The 3 chord will typically be minor. The 4 chord will typically be major. The 5 chord will be major. The 6 chord will be minor. And the 7 chord will typically be diminished. And I say typically because these are just guidelines. People break these rules all the time. It'll be like the 2 will be a minor chord if you strictly follow the rules of the major scale. Chord progressions typically are communicated via numbers. So if I were to play this chord progression, I would say that I just played 1, 4, 5, 1 in C. So that means you played the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, the 1 chord, and presumably you would repeat that. Now for the exercises for this lesson, I will only play the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord in various successions. I will play them in root position. I'm not going to play any bass notes with my left hand, and I'll stick to 1 octave. This is just to simplify things and to hopefully make it a little easier. I know for a lot of people it's going to be very easy, but I definitely know for a lot of people it's going to be very, very difficult. For me, this was very, very difficult. I'm terrible at chord progressions. I've always been terrible at them. I'm still bad at them, so I'm learning along with you guys. The way I'm going to structure these chord progression exercises is I'm going to play 4 chords per progression. I'm going to play the progression 3 times. And then at the end of the 3rd time, I'll tell you the numerical values of the chord progression. I'll play 5 exercises. Hopefully by the end of the 3rd time, you will have figured out the sequence. If not, don't fret. We'll get better as we keep going. Let's get right to it. So just to remind you, for all 5 chord progressions, we're going to be in the key of C major. Number 1. So that chord progression was 1, 4, 5, 1. Number 2. That was 4, 1, 5, 1. Number 3. That was 1, 5, 4, 5. Number 4. That was 5, 4, 1, 5. Number 5. That was 1, 4, 1, 5. Great work. So with that, I think we can bring this episode to a close. Now I know, I'm sorry I keep saying this, but I know this has been pretty basic, and for some of you it was a little too basic maybe. But I do plan to expand our our knowledge every episode. I'm going to add more chords, more chord progressions, more scales, more intervals. I want to go past the octave interval into some of the further apart intervals. Like I want to do 9s and 13s and 11s and all that. In terms of chords, I want to do eventually do 4-note chords, 5-note chords, maybe even 6-note chords, who knows. In terms of chord progressions, we'll of course end up using all chords in any scale. Maybe we'll get into substitution chords. We'll get into produced tracks for chord progressions. Like it's not just going to be triads on a piano, so that it can be a little more analogous to trying to figure out actual songs. And eventually, like I said earlier, I do want to include some rhythmic stuff. I just got to figure out how I kind of want to approach that. So yeah, hopefully you guys have found this podcast helpful. There will be a lot more of these. They're going to get more challenging, more complicated, but I want to be really careful not to ramp up the difficulty too rapidly. And with that, I want to thank you guys very, very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Take care.